Well, hi, Tammy. Hey, I appreciate you spending some time with me on Friday. Welcome to the InnSync show.
Hey, Cory, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Hey, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Yeah, you'll pick up on it sooner than later. I'm Canadian. So if you haven't picked up on my Canadian accent, when you and I met last month in Vegas, I think we're talking a little bit, I was envious about you being in San Diego because I love San Diego. I'm outside of Toronto.
Oh.
And we have, we're a North American company. I'd say half our employees are in the US, but we're a Canadian company. And we provide primarily, in addition to sales training, which is kind of at the core of who we are and how we started back 9 years ago, we provide remote sales support for hotels in the select service upper scale category who do not have their own property level sellers. So perhaps you're an 80-room Holiday Inn Express in a tier 2 market, and either you can't find the talent or you don't need someone full time. So we have roughly 200 hotels, all brands, across the spectrum of all brands that we support across North America, and have a team of 40 people who love selling in a remote environment, don't want to be tied to operations, and just want to be able to hunt for business and help our hotels increase their revenue.
Wonderful. Love it. Love it. Hey, I'm looking forward to our conversation. I appreciate, I'm really interested in getting your insights on demystifying hotel sales. So welcome to the InnSync show.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot to break down. I'm excited about what you put together. I think we'll have a great dialogue about sales.
Wonderful. So that leads to my first question is, what is the greatest misconception about hotel sales?
There's probably more than one, and I've kind of lumped it into two different pieces. And one is, I think when a lot of times sales reports into an operational role, and I think if you're hiring at the property level, general managers think that all salespeople are the same. So one size fits all. When instead, it's very rare, and we are a sales organization, we've got a team of 40 people, so we know this firsthand. Not all salespeople are good at all aspects and all stages of the sales process. So the mistake that general managers make that really frustrates them, because it can lead to high turnover, is, well, I hired a salesperson, but they didn't do what I needed them to do. When in fact, you need to take a step back and say, what specifically do you need? What does your sales structure need to look like? What does your segmentation look like? Do you need somebody just managing the flurry of all incoming inquiries and to do more lead conversion and administrative work, all that busy work that comes with sports groups and wedding groups? Or are you in a market that's so competitive, you need someone to really be assertive and hunting for business versus gathering or farming? And we can talk more about that later, because the skill set and the mindset required for each of those roles I described are so different. And to find a salesperson who can do it all, you're looking for a unicorn, right? And then we tie them to operations. And we say, well, there's no reason you can't pull a couple of shifts on the front desk or go set up that meeting room.
Right.
Or, work on that catering event. So I guess misconception number one is not all salespeople are equal, and not all salespeople enjoy all parts of the sales process. So when we're hiring for our company, we need to make sure they love the hunt, the front end of that process, because we're not getting incoming inquiries. Our clients are paying us to find new business. So when we're interviewing new sellers, if they're saying, oh, I love doing site inspections, or I love the detailing, I love relationships, they're not going to love cold calling 90% of their time.
That is
right.
A very good point. Yep.
The second misconception, I would say, for people who manage the sales function and they don't understand it, is that there's instant gratification that comes with sales. And hey, I hired you on Monday and it's Friday. What have you booked for me?
Right, right.
And not understanding that, and I've said this before, I've written about it, sales is actually a skilled trade, or it should be considered like a skilled trade. There are many stages to the sales process, and there is a sales funnel. You know this in your business.
Mm-hmm.
Even, think of that marketing funnel.
Yep.
And it can take months and even years to convert a piece of business. But if that sales function is reporting to operations and they don't understand the sales process, they're going to think it should be a quick transaction, just like, well, hey, my revenue manager opened up a 2-night special on Expedia and I picked up 20 room nights for tomorrow. Why can't your salesperson convert that quickly? Because we're having business conversations with people who may not know who we are, may not have a need, may be happy with their current supplier, and we're looking for an opportunity to be able to shift that business. So I think those would be the two biggest misconceptions, is that one size fits all salespeople are good at everything, and that it's transactional. We should be able to start smiling and dialing Monday and checking people in on Friday.
Two really, really great points. And one, I just wanted to kind of follow up on that last point of yours. So are you saying that large ticket sales, such as maybe a group or an event, requires some sort of trust involved, and for you to pick up the phone and convert a piece of business completely cold may seem a little bit unreasonable?
Imagine, right? And I think the same expectations we have for incoming inquiries, right? When incoming inquiries come to a hotel, they have a need, they know who you are, and it's a warmer lead than, you have a higher chance of converting. And I think we put those same expectations, like, hey, my incoming sales team converted X amount this week. My outbound sales team didn't convert anything. It's a different process, and we're dealing with a different clientele who's ready to purchase. They're further down that sales funnel than the client who does not want to talk to a salesperson and may not even have a need. So I think understanding that, we do a lot of educating even with our clients before they even sign a contract with us, to say, if realistically, it's going to take 3 to 6 months before we start converting, depending on the segments. If it's large conventions, 12 to 18 months out. If it's project-based business, 30, 60, 90 days. But they want instant gratification, and there's no pixie dust that we can just magically sprinkle everywhere and convert business that's just not ready to convert.
Completely agree. So there's not just a horde of stampeding prospects that are, all it requires is that them know about your hotel. That's been the only problem, right? So
I know. Why didn't you call sooner? Well, I've been waiting for your call.
Exactly. Oh my God. That's
said no buyer ever said that.
And naturally, as owners or management companies of hotels, they tend to think at how wonderful that the particular product is. And oh my God, they should be lucky to book their group here. We just need to tell more people about it, and then our entire problem solved. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, the differentiator can't be rates, dates, and space, because every hotel has rates, dates, and space.
Right, exactly.
So if that's what you're leading with, then you're going to blend into a sea of sameness, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Differentiators, what sets you apart distinctly? Just those core
100%.
basic, just those fundamentals. And it's amazing if you ask somebody the why, simple why question. Why should I book at your hotel? A lot of them, it's those three, right?
They would have deer in the headlights. Why? Well, because we've got breakfast, we've got great comfortable beds, we've got great service. Well, your competitors are saying the same thing.
All 12 of them.
Yeah, 100%, every brand. So it is that relationship, it's the trust, it's us solving a problem. It has nothing to do with us. That's a problem in sales. Yep. We think it has everything to do, we're so attached to our product.
Exactly.
But our product is solving, in a hotel, we're a means to an end. Why are you having a meeting? Why are your travelers coming in for training? What problem are we solving? If we can tap into that, that's how we build the trust, so we can actually shift share. And that's the why behind why choose us over someone else?
Exactly. In fact, it reminds me, I think of a post quite not too long ago, you had mentioned that, and I boldly, and I tell this to our clients all the time, nobody gives a crap about you or your product or your hotel until they know you can help solve their problem, right? In fact, your website should be about them and not about how many awards that you've won or how great you are. They don't care. They want to know, how can you make their pain go away?
So true. And you got it, right? You're a marketing guru. You've got your own agency. 80% of companies, I think, get it wrong. If you go on their websites, it's all about me, 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 me. Look at me.
Exactly.
To your point, look at the awards.
And even in agencies, for years, I didn't know any better. And I just thought, hey, I post our industry awards here, or how great our portfolio is. People are going to break down our door because we're so wonderful. And quite honestly, we ain't that much more better than a whole lot of agencies. It has to be a distinct why. And it's about them specifically. Absolutely.
So true. To figure that out, they don't teach that in school. I don't know. And I certainly, coming up through Hilton 30 years ago, the sales ranks with Hilton, it was all about sell your product, do those site inspections, hand out those catering menus, those glossy brochures without figuring out the why. And it's the easiest thing once you get it.
Absolutely.
Once you get it, it's your secret sauce.
Yeah, it almost sounds so basic. It's like, it's how did we not realize this? All we have to do is put ourselves in their shoes. How often do you get in fact, I got a laughable cold email. I'm going to post it as the cold email award of the week. It's incredibly hilarious. But I get those emails and I'm like, how do these people think I'm going to respond? It has nothing to do with my need. They're completely off base with my wants or solving my problems. And if we take that and put ourselves in our client's shoes and have them understand the same situation, I know it sounds simple, but it's not a layup, really. So many people think
and I think salespeople think they're doing it more often than they actually are.
Right.
I remember years ago delivering this training session, and we were going through this very section, delivering your value proposition and figuring out the why. And so this young salesperson got up and she was delivering the why. The reason you should stay with us is we are a family-run business. I said, that's the what. Tell me the why.
Exactly.
And it took us 15 minutes. She couldn't, and it was obvious to her, because when I finally said to her, why do you lead with that? Why is that important? Well, because we care, all the right things, right? We care. We're locals. We know a lot of people. We contribute to the community. I said, that's the why. She knew the why. And she was almost frustrated at me that I was trying to beat it out of her, because she thought everybody knew the why. She thought the why was obvious, but she was leading with the what. We're a family-owned business that's owned this hotel for X amount of well, so what? What's the why?
It's funny you say that. I'm going through a client exercise right now. And ironically, that is their differentiator. Family-run business, because their competitors are a behemoth corporation who are soulless, heartless, they've got turnover. So ironically, that's the why, that is their why that bubbled to the top. But that was after a very, in-depth exercise to figure out those 5 distinct differentiators. And that actually is number 1 for them. So
yeah, and family, you can unpack that even more, right? So they're family run. Why does it matter? You're going to get attention. You're not a number. Exactly. We care.
Responsiveness.
Yes, all of that under the why. So that's so cool.
Beautiful. So where do you see the greatest opportunity today for sales professionals?
I think a big reset. I've been talking about it a lot, and of course I'll do a shameless plug for my book, which about, Room to Grow. I don't know if you can see it.
That is very organically mentioned. Very nice.
I need to drop, if you don't have a copy, I'm going to drop this in the mail to you so you can have a copy. But I talk a lot. I wrote it during the pandemic because whether you're a general manager who oversees a sales function or the front desk, or you're a director of sales or you manage a regional sales team, we have to reset, because what we got away with before the pandemic, we're not going to get away with right now. And what I mean by that is, 2019, for 10 years, we were riding a pretty good wave of incoming inquiries, and all market segments were traveling. And there wasn't a need to really hunt for business, and it was very transactional. Salespeople were, wining and dining clients and going to trade shows and couldn't keep up with the demand. So when all segments stop traveling, and it's leisure, it's corporate, it's group, we know some segments are coming back and starting to travel. How do you shift your mindset to now pick up the phone and cold call when you haven't cold called in a very long time? How do you prepare for that? So for me, the biggest opportunity for salespeople is to shift your mindset in terms of this transactional mindset to, what do we do well? What is my purpose? What is our why? And picking up the phone and getting back to some of those fundamentals. Those fundamentals were thrown by the wayside when times were good. Making sure you're relevant, you are prepared for those prospecting calls. I mean, look, a lot of buyers are working from home right now. So the only way to get to them is through the phone or through email. And if you're smiling and dialing and you're not prepared, you're going to be the easiest salesperson to shut down. I also think if they haven't already over these 2 years, they need to be, instead of specialists, learn multiple market segments. Because guess what kept the lights on the past 2 years? If you never sold a construction project or talked to a general contractor prior to COVID, it was that blue collar, gray collar segment that kept the lights on, in addition to medical and
we were even doing celebration of life for one of our clients, and then also overflow and church services. So we got really creative. Yes.
Yeah, and if you've never sold into those segments before because you were in a big box hotel and you did large conventions or you did corporate only, then you're really going to struggle. So learn multiple segments, shift your mindset, because it is a buyer's, again, depends on the market, right? So I can't make too many generalities or general statements, but go back and remember those fundamentals so that you show up and you can actually get to second base with the client because you're relevant and you're not just sounding like every other salesperson. I think that's the biggest opportunity.
And now let me, because I mentioned this before we jumped on the phone really quickly. I thought this would be a good opportunity to mention this. People that struggle with cold calling, and I'm one of them. I'm like, I have like a deer in headlights when that happens, which leads me to believe that I love the concept of social selling, because at least if you're active on LinkedIn and they're doing exactly what we're doing right now, and at least they recognize your name somewhere, and that it may have triggered a conversation that you were involved with on, whatever the case may be, it might be able to transform your coldness to something maybe it's a little bit more lukewarm, where suddenly they're going to take your call because they may have seen your face or you're involved in a conversation. So that's another element I try to express and at least add to the people that we're working with. I know you might not see a direct result from being active every day on LinkedIn, but it's something that's going to come in handy, maybe not today, but maybe a couple of down the road. And it may take that freezing coldness out of your prospecting outreach.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, there are people who I've met on LinkedIn over the past 2 years, you being one of them, that it would have been very difficult for either one of us to connect with each other, right? In a cold environment. Like, hey, Cory, I'm Tammy. Are there any synergies? That I like what you post, you like what I post. LinkedIn has been an amazing, if you use it right, it's been an amazing platform the last 2 years to get to know people when we couldn't get out and actually meet people.
Exactly.
There's people who I've reached out to interview for jobs because I see their post, then they apply.
Yep.
And because I've been connected to them on LinkedIn, and I have a sense of what they stand for based on what they're posting. Now they're applying for a job in our organization. They send me a message to say, hey, Tammy, do you mind checking out my resume? I'm checking the resume out before anyone else's because I already feel like I have a sense of who they are.
Beautiful.
So when it comes to social selling, I love leveraging LinkedIn in terms of B2B, right?
Yep,
if it's B2C, that's different. Then it's Instagram, it's Facebook, but I'm purely talking about B2B, and LinkedIn is the main platform that I use. But I call it a layered approach. So come up with your target list, right? You want to connect with these buyers. Then you reach out to them on, get to know them a little bit. What are they interested in? You send them a personal message saying, this is why I want to connect with you. And then if they're active on LinkedIn, you start engaging with their posts.
Yep.
So you've got mind share. So then to your point, Cory, when you send them that email saying, hey, you mentioned on your LinkedIn post that you're hiring. How is that going to impact your travel schedule? Is there an opportunity for us to talk about how I might be able to solve some of those problems?
Love that.
Or you leave a voicemail message, you're not so cold.
Exactly. In fact, what I've been working really well with me as well, if there's somebody I want to meet on LinkedIn, I will engage on their posts at minimum 2, 3, 4, 5 times and at least get a little bit of dialogue. Then I send them a personalized LinkedIn request. Almost every time it's accepted if I do it that way. But if I don't preempt it, and at least
I love that.
It works like a gem every time. So if you give them a little love up front, you give them, build a teeny little bit of relationship by weighing in. You don't have to be too patronizing, you want to be careful. But if you weigh in on a conversation that they posted and then do it that way, it works beautiful.
They know who you are.
Exactly.
And I would say for somebody who doesn't want to make cold calls, you can't just sit on LinkedIn all day sending messages and hope they're going to buy for you. That would be a dream, right?
Yes, right.
So you've got to look and say, what's my next move? Jill Conrath, who I'm a huge fan of, she's wrote a number of best-selling books. One is Snap Selling. She's talking specifically, I love her thinking around email selling, but I think this applies even if you're leaving a voicemail. When you're reaching out to a buyer, subconsciously that buyer, you're going to fall into one of four. They're thinking subconsciously, they've got a criteria. Is it a priority? Is it timely? Does it add value? And is it important to me? So she calls it trigger events. Mm-hmm. Look for your prospects. Are there trigger events happening in their world? Are they hiring? Are they downsizing? Is it a shutdown? What's going on in their world that could cause, in this case, travel and where they might need a hotel? That is when you're going to get bumped up on the priority list and probably get a response rate. So again, we can't just hang out social selling and LinkedIn all day. But if you've got some kind of presence on LinkedIn, you've engaged with some content, when you reach out with a relevant email or a relevant voicemail, you're not a stranger. And if you demonstrate that you know their business and there's what we call a trigger event, or what Jill Conrath calls a trigger event, that there's a high probability you're going to get a call back or get a response back to that email.
Absolutely. No, I love that. That's a great recipe right now. One thing I wanted to add about the benefit of LinkedIn versus email, right? It's no mystery. We're in a revolving door of job shuffling, right?
True.
So emails, in fact, we have to clean our clients' emails almost nearly monthly now because the turnover is so great. Literally 5 to 10% of the list is no longer valid after 45 days. So,
oh my gosh.
But if you're connected with somebody on LinkedIn, you'll never be disconnected from them because they're always going to continue to update their email address. So
that's right.
So we did a little bit of mind shift on that, and building that list and that connectivity on LinkedIn, you're ensured that you're always going to have that, at least that connectivity without having to worry about fetching their email every time. So just wanted to kind of add that in there.
That's valuable. And they also announce they started a new job or open for work.
Yes.
They tend to broadcast that on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Or
so you're in the know.
Or my light engagers on LinkedIn that I'm connected to, I think this is hilarious. In fact, I do it out of every year. And my post is, does anyone know when the Forbes Travel Guide Awards are out? Because people that don't post any other time except when those awards, and half of my feed is just those awards. So
isn't that crazy?
That's so funny. The obsession that our industry has with awards is staggering. It is, but it's great for people that are getting awards. But I'd much rather look at social proof and reviews.
So true.
Yes, definitely.
And that takes work. It's not instant gratification. Getting an award isn't instant gratification either. It's a lot of work. But
absolutely.
You know, the profile and the engagement that I've been able to develop in the last 2 years over LinkedIn hasn't happened overnight.
No.
It's intentional. I'm not posting clickbait. You know, I really have to think, like, I didn't post at all this week. And I'm having an mild anxiety attack. But I've got a few posts, and I listened to this great podcast about how you get traction in the algorithms on LinkedIn. If you've got a few good posts from the week before that are getting traction and doing well, let them ride. And honestly, I have to sit down and really think what's going on in the industry. What value do I have? What's going on at this moment that I might be able to help somebody in my network? And if I don't have anything creative or good to write about, I mean, I kind of skipped this week. I've got something that came up this afternoon that I'm like, oh, I want to talk about that. But I'm not going to post for the sake of posting, but it's a catch-22 because you can't go long periods of time without posting. But my point is, it's a grind, and you need to have intention around it and really care about your network and what you're serving, like who you're serving and what you're serving up.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I tell people that are interested in getting into, I don't like to use the word selling, but on social media, on LinkedIn and building relationships, literally, you have to be consistent for a year and expect nothing in return. You have to put in 1 year, and just like you go to college, you know, you have to be some investment up front to see a return. You will see a return if you are genuinely there to build relationships and help people first. You will see that tenfold.
So true.
And
your personality comes through, good or bad. Your intentions come through, good or bad.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of not coming up with ideas, this is beautiful because for you gracious enough to come on my show, I literally could slice this up because I know a lot of people are talking about hotel sales, and this is going to be I venture to say a highly viewed piece of content on our YouTube channel. I've got so much of this that I could literally schedule things out that I know that are going to be impactful and actionable for weeks to come. So that's my little hack, is that I'm leveraging the brain power of people that are so much smarter than I am.
So true. And then you've got content for weeks and weeks to come.
I've got it come out. It's crazy how much this little show has opened up an opportunity. And as I mentioned before, since I did a little pre-work, we're only focusing on topics and things that people are already talking about right now. And that just makes it that much more sticky and viewable, because people are literally consuming it, and it's working out fantastic. So I wanted to find out, what's your 12-month forecast look like?
So prediction around the industry and what segments are coming back and all that good stuff, right?
Yep.
I think we're all looking at the same crystal ball and we're shaking it. There's actually, I came out today, US travel just sent a forecast out in terms of what they're seeing by segment and what their forecast is. And we know that leisure is strong. We know that groups coming back. The big question mark, of course, is international travel and corporate, that kind of non-essential corporate that we've been waiting for. And it's interesting, this is the post I was going to make this afternoon, so I'm giving it away. But they are expecting, their forecast is that corporate travel will be somewhere around 81% of pre-pandemic levels by the end of this year. And I was surprised by that because we're not seeing that yet. And I don't know if they're expecting a really strong Q3 and Q4 in terms of group travel. Leisure's leading the way. Yes, that blue collar segment is still traveling, but it's group, Smurf segment, leisure, and some of that blue collar. So I guess my prediction, it's more about what we need to watch for. We're all following the same breadcrumbs. We need to be having as many conversations with buyers as possible, and not just, hey, do you have any upcoming business? What is the sentiment in your company around travel? What does a travel program look like next year if there is some sort of recession? We need to be having those conversations. I'm not going to determine what the 12-month forecast looks like. Our buyers are going to.
Beautiful. Yep.
And, you know, I was sitting at a table last week. I went to Nashville for a little getaway for 2 days, and I'm sitting at a table, my friend and I, and this gal is in sales, and she said, I've been traveling like crazy for a year throughout COVID, and now we have a travel ban because of this, perhaps the inflation. They're saying it's inflation, and this perhaps recession. Not all companies, you know, may go down that route, but I think a lot of companies, especially that didn't have RFPs the last 2 years, they're sending RFPs out for 2023. They're figuring out their new travel policies. They've saved a lot of money over the last 2 years. They're not going to want to see that go away.
No.
And I think corporate travel is going to come back. It's going to maybe look different, and there won't be as many frivolous corporate trips. But I think corporate groups, you know, we're planning our offsite for December because we've not been together since August 2019. So I think you're going to see some corporate teams getting together in larger groups.
I was going to ask you about that. In fact, that's one thing that we had mentioned to some of our clients, is that companies like REI they sold their corporate headquarters. They don't even have a conference room anymore. So I was asking them, is there going to be a new micro segment of corporate travel that's called, leadership travel? I'm trying to put my thumb on it, and I wanted to ask, and I didn't even add this so I hope you don't mind the ad lib here.
No.
Do you see a new segment breaking out that is consistent, maybe a quarterly type thing where they need to get the key stakeholders together in a conference room because they don't have a conference anymore?
Yeah, I think it's going to fall. It might not be a new segment. It might be new demand. I think it's going to fall under the corporate group segment. And it could be their sales team. It could be their leadership team. It could be a regional team. And you could see those popping up for sure, especially the remote. The workforce has gone remote. Exactly. To your point, corporate offices are closing their doors, or they may only have a handful of people in their corporate office. So I think that any money they might be saving in rent or real estate, or even on the corporate transient side, if they're not traveling as much, they can come together as a group. It'll be really interesting. I watched this great interview with a bunch of VP of sales across different companies, and this was last year, so we weren't through the pandemic yet. And they were saying, what does the future of travel look like in your organization? Are you going to be sending your salespeople on the road now that we've all gotten used to Zoom? And everybody said, listen, I can't afford to have my competitor on a plane, meeting with a potential client, and have my salesperson in the office. However, am I going to send them on the plane before they further qualify it? Maybe I'm not going to send them on a plane for the first step of the sales process. Maybe it's further down the sales funnel they get on that plane. So there might not be as frequent trips, so everybody's trying to figure it out. And I think for me, in terms of trying to guess, it's tune in to the buying signals and have as many conversations with your prospects as possible so you can shift your strategy. And when you see something come back, you're already there, you've got the relationship, and you're ready to capture it.
Wonderful. I love that. In fact, this is a great segue. As I mentioned, I added another question for you, but I hope you don't mind. I was going to add it now because it makes more sense and add it to the end. And my question to you is, say for instance, overnight, today, gas prices go to $10 a gallon. Or God forbid, there's another headline that completely blows up your planning or what you were going to do for the next couple of weeks. I'm Tammy Gillis. I'm starting again on Monday. Headlines are here. The dynamic and the landscape's completely changed. What would you do in a situation like that?
Yeah, so let's say the economy's in the toilet, people aren't traveling, companies are tightening their belt straps. I think we do what we did really well 2 years ago. I mean, that was the greatest pandemic we've seen in this lifetime when 90% of the world stopped traveling.
Right.
So let's hope we never see that again. I think we know there's always going to be a certain segment traveling, and you have to shift gears. You have to say, okay, the groups have canceled. And it's when you talk to salespeople, probably the first 3 months of COVID, all they did was handle cancellations. They couldn't keep up with the cancellations and the rebookings, and it was awful. But if they're able to switch gears, if groups did cancel or corporate didn't materialize, you have to follow those breadcrumbs and go after those essential services who kept the lights on for the last 2 years for many hotels. There used to be a real delineation pre-COVID where the select service hotels got these segments and the full service, upper scale hotels got these segments, pretty much, right? COVID, you had full service Marriotts going after corporate lodging business and construction business that they've never even knew how to go after. So they're all of a sudden playing in the sandbox of the select service hotels that never had to worry about the big box hotels. So that shift, I think, as segments come back, will naturally start to even out again. But if the bottom falls out, we know what to do because we've had to do it. You need to get scrappy. You need to make sure you shift your mindset from farming to hunting. You need to work with your revenue team and look at your rate strategy. And more importantly, try not to panic. I hope the last 2 years have been a training ground for everybody. And I also hope we learn skills we don't have to ever use again.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, absolutely. So Monday comes around. Instead of doom and gloom, we've got, hey, things are looking up. We seem to be stabilizing a little bit. It seems like we're going to continue on maybe on recovery that we are anticipating. So what are some game-changing trends you're seeing from now and maybe to the end of the year and into 2023?
Sales specifically, when it comes to sales.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's also some service stuff we can talk about that'll be interesting. What stays, what goes away, what stays. On the sales side, I think the game-changing trend is that remote selling is not going away.
Right.
And how many buyers are going to go back to their offices? So if that's the case, if they're not going back to offices, what does the future of sales blitzes and sales calls, what does that look like?
Good point. Very good point.
So our hotels that we support will go in market, and we're just starting to go back in market to see their property and do an in-market visit. A lot of buyers are not in their offices. We want to see them more than they want to see us, unless there is a really great relationship established. Then we want to get together. We want to have dinner with them, break some bread. But I think the game-changing trend that's not going away is that remote selling and remote working for buyers is going to be a thing. And so what we have to keep in mind is, for those of us that don't have we've been doing it for 9 years, this is all we know. But for those property level sellers who are used to those face-to-face appointments, how do you shift your game? How do you level up to make sure that your outbound call strategy, or whether it's email or phone or LinkedIn and all three, is the best in your market? Because there's no shortage of salespeople calling buyers right now. But call response rates are at an all-time low. Right. Because if you're not relevant, you're not getting a call back. Your emails are first deleted and your voicemails are first deleted. So I think the game-changing trend is, how are we going to continue to operate and build relationships in a remote way? And you and I know, your conferences are still going to happen, right? High Tech and Rock next week, I think, are in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
I will not be there, unfortunately.
Me either.
But customers are, at IHG conference in Vegas, we had the busiest convention we've ever had because buyers genuinely were so excited to see their partners and their vendors. There's still a place for that, and that's still really, really important. But in between those conventions and regional shows, get used to remote selling and make sure your team is trained for it.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, on that same, you just reminded me, because there was a couple exhibitors at that show that I had a conversation with, and I wanted to ask you about them. And it's in relation to platforms like Group 360 and IEV. If there's one thing that happened in COVID, is that consumers got a lot more comfortable in purchasing high ticket items. Carvana, they're much more comfortable in a self-guided process. And that's one of the things that we're trying to teach our clients, is that you don't want to put your content behind gates and restrict them from giving them all the information, everything that they need, where they are, how they want to consume it, so that they themselves can do the majority of the buying process themselves. So that when they reach out, which may be at that very, very bottom part of the funnel, because they've already made themselves that process, they don't want to talk to salespeople because they feel that they're comfortable in doing that. If we see a trend in platforms like Group 360 and Ivy, where now meeting planners can go and book smaller meetings, but do it themselves, what role do you see sales in something like that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I'd answer it like this. Going online and booking a meeting is more of a transaction, right? I talked to a partner in one of the largest meeting planning companies in Canada just the last couple of months to say, our meetings back, and she was very optimistic. Meetings were back, very short lead time. And I said, so how are you engaging with salespeople? She said, first of all, trying to find somebody on property to return your call is a nightmare. So I have built a network over my career, and I call my Rolodex. I go back to I'm dating myself with a Rolodex, her electronic Rolodex, her iPhone. And she knows the people in every market that she can call. And it's not about price. It's who's going to get back to me, who's going to take care of my group.
Bingo.
So there's, from a transactional, from a rate, states, and space, and do you have availability? Yes, you can go online and there's automation and there's tools. But in terms of who do I have a relationship with on property that I know that this group is going to be well taken care of, I think that's the role of salespeople. And also, to your point, buyers are more informed, right? So salespeople are coming in at the funnel where perhaps they're already halfway through their buying process. But if that buyer or if that seller is active, let's say in their outreach and on LinkedIn, there's already an awareness of that seller. Like, right. I know Tammy works at that hotel and she's going to do a really good job. And when I do have a need, I'm going to take her call because I know she's going to get back to me. I know they have expertise. I know they do large events. So I think there still is a role for that human element, and you can't automate everything.
Absolutely.
And here's the thing, your only differentiator as a salesperson is your solution and how you show up. If you're showing up in a transactional way, then you can't compete with the Ivies of the world.
Exactly.
You're not adding any more value than what they can get on your website.
And oftentimes when they do it themselves, they prefer it to do themselves, right? Because they know that it's going to be right. It's much like going to Chipotle and ordering my burrito. I'm not looking for the experience, right? I want to know my burrito's done right. I will stand outside Chipotle and order my burrito off the app versus walking inside.
Yes.
Because it's a transaction. I want control of it. Now, if my server was hilarious and funny and added value to my trip, I might think differently. So much to your point, I think sales really need to up their game and bring something of tangible value to that process, albeit trusting that they know that their group is going to be taken care of.
Yeah, and they have a lot of questions right now around, what's open, what's not open, technology. I've got X amount of people calling in for this because it's a hybrid meeting. What's the best way to serve this kind of lunch? I mean, when it comes to service and hospitality, there's only so much we can do online.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But it's up to that salesperson to demonstrate, can they level up and up their game and add more value than what they can get online? And I'll tell you, the reason buyers don't want to engage with sellers until they're almost ready to purchase is because their experience with sellers is so miserable.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not adding value.
Bingo.
If they were adding value, of course they'd say, do the work for me. Why would the meeting planner want to do all that work?
Totally
If they
agree.
had somebody they could trust, they would delegate to that trusted partner. But their experience with salespeople, for the most part, is so miserable across all categories that they're like, I might as well do it myself, and I'll just bring them in for the contract signing.
Bingo. You hit it right on the head. Which I meant to ask you also is, we're experiencing so much more importance on the element of reviews and testimonials. How come, in fact, we're working to solve that problem, by the way. We noticed that the B2B side in hospitality doesn't offer a solution like a Yelp or TripAdvisor. Yet, the sale is so much bigger. There's so much more at stake than simply a family booking a 3-night stay. As catastrophic as a family vacation could be, booking a group for Qualcomm, that's $125,000 and they're flying the entire team. That is a tremendous amount of area of problems or issues. Do you see testimonials and social proof in general becoming even increasingly more important in this sales process?
I think it's been really important over COVID. It will continue to be important. I mean, even B2B travelers, they're going on TripAdvisor, they're Google reviews, they're looking. And even for my own travel, I'm not looking at reviews from I'm looking at reviews. How are they handling the last 30, 60, 90 days with this labor crisis? And, we just got back from 2 back-to-back trips in Vegas for conventions and meetings. And there was 6 weeks where we had a lot of travel and trade shows and golf tournament that we were attending. And we look at the hotels and we're looking at what has their track record been when we're staying there the last 30, 60, 90 days. It's been difficult with the labor market. We help our hotels as well that we sell for to work on those reviews, because maybe there was a change in general manager, maybe the staffing issue maybe they're in a better place than they were before. But that's where people are going for social proof, 100%. I would say leisure and B2B, they're going on those sites. So take some time. It's not just your brand reviews. Check Google, check TripAdvisor, and just make sure that you've got a good balance of reviews.
Yeah, we're really focusing on building social proof. That's, in fact, we're adding so much more of that into our client websites. It's becoming literally a second component on the homepage, right up front and center. And a lot of people don't realize, and we're beginning to teach some of our clients, Google My Business reviews are actually a factor in SEO and search.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's oftentimes difficult from some of our seasoned business owners prior to Yelp or TripAdvisor is to ignore some of this, right? And I've even seen some of our clients getting really upset and hostile that a particular person left a review. And we just express the importance of good, bad, and especially ugly. You have to be there. You can't let something fester like that. The consumer is smart. They'll see if that person's unreasonable. It may have been a disgruntled employee or whatever the case may be, but you've got to really harness the power. And when you're really skilled at it, I've seen people on TripAdvisor that are chronic gripers they've been turned into the biggest ambassador for their hotel. And it's amazing to see that transformation happen. So, you know, if there's one thing that we're trying to teach some of our clients is that embrace it. You can't, there's no hack for it. You can't get around it. It's completely out of your control. So social proof is going to be increasingly more important as we move forward, especially in a culture where many of us, me included, I don't trust our media at all. They're in it for the money. God knows what else they're in it for, but it's no longer unbiased. And I don't trust advertising anymore. Traditional advertising is in the tank. Your biggest area for improvement for getting new opportunities in your pipeline is to crush your social proof element, which takes a lot of work, but it can be done. And that's where, especially organically, you don't have to spend a dime on it. But you got to know when people come, they do a search on your property, they are going to look at your reviews. In almost every case.
Always. And
right?
All generations. It's interesting. And I couldn't agree more with you. That social proof, people aren't going to believe what you tell them about your hotel and how great your hotel is. They're going to believe what other people are saying about your hotel. Right. And even, you know, we have 3 teenagers. The first thing, oh, this place only has X amount of stars or X amount of reviews. So every generation now with a smartphone, they're looking at reviews. That's not going away anytime soon. And I just want to add the importance of replying to your reviews, even good, bad, and indifferent. I can get past a hotel that had bad reviews based on the engagement and how the GM or supervisor responded.
Absolutely, we're human.
But some are just burying their heads in the sand and hoping it'll go away and not engaging. And no response does not help the rank, as you know. So you can't be doing this off the side of your desk. You've got to be having a strategy around your reviews all day long.
Absolutely. In fact, a no response implies fault.
Yes.
Right? Or
apathy, you know?
Absolutely. But like
Worse.
you mentioned before, if the GM's response, right? And if it's a great way to see how other people handle what could be a sticky situation, but we're all human. And I think anybody that's reasonable, i.e. some people that you don't want at your property, won't take any excuse, i.e. something happens that's completely out of your control, but the GM weighs in and there's a very, very sound and clear explanation. Obviously apologies involved with it, but people look at that and go, wow, this person does care.
Yes.
And they can use it to their advantage.
They weren't defensive. They weren't combative.
Exactly. Or shifting blame, right? It's always someone else's fault. That's the worst. Absolutely the worst. And it takes a little bit of skill to do that correctly.
It's a great point.
Yes. So I wanted to ask you before this has been a great conversation. In fact,
we could go on. Too bad we live so far apart.
Hey, it's almost like you're right here in San Diego. I can't wait I've never been to Canada, so I'm
well, come on up.
Yes. Before I break with you, I wanted to get a Tammy Gillis, some of her secret sauce you can leave with us.
I was thinking about this question, and I think I wanted to share a secret, recipe, I guess, as a business owner, not necessarily sales.
Oh, no, that's great.
Because we do have this labor crisis, and business, has been tough for everybody the past couple of years. So I wanted my secret sauce in operating a successful business that got through COVID is your differentiator can't be price. Your differentiator has to be the experience that you give your employees and your clients. And we've always had that. Our 9-year anniversary is October. We didn't just start caring about our culture over COVID. That has been part of our DNA. And so if you're not spending an inordinate amount of time on those two things, the experience that your employees have with you and the customer journey and the experience that your customers have with you, then you are creating a very transactional environment where your only differentiator's price. And also, it's just not a great way to build a business. And you're going to have high turnover. You're going to have high attrition, both on the employee side and both on the customer side. So while people, you know, over COVID were cutting prices and cutting costs and letting people go, we were doubling down on, you know, training and hiring and investing. And so those, not to say we don't care about revenue, we don't care about profit. Of course, we you know, we're a for-profit corporation.
Sure.
But if you get those two elements right, if you have the right business model and you spend most of your time on the experience that your employees have with you and the experience your customers have with you, you will be successful. The bottom line will take care of itself with the right rigor and management. So that's my secret sauce. And it's not, it's common sense, but it's not common practice.
You know, it's funny you say that, because we've had a conversation on one of our partners that we work with, and they're not creating necessarily happy customers all the time. And I think without creating happy customers, and we just talked about reviews, right? And happy employees, I don't understand how you could have a successful business in this climate. Pre the internet, you could run your shop, you could run your business as used car, right? You burn this person, there's always another one waiting in the wings.
You get away with a lot.
Exactly. But now a lot of people have not realized the internet has put now the power in the consumer's hands. You can't hide from that.
Transparency.
Exactly. You've got no choice. So
but even look at Glassdoor. Employees can also, and sometimes they're disgruntled employees, but in this kind of a market where salespeople are hard to find, yes, of course, frontline hourly employees, but salespeople are really, really hard to find. The amount of energy and investment we put into taking care of our team and making sure that this is a really great place to work is our first priority all day long. And they take amazing care of our customers. And guess what? It helps grow our revenue. We're more profitable. It's not you don't switch it around and just focus on profit, and then hope your customers are happy. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, how could you not think that disgruntled employees and turnover doesn't affect your bottom line? That is, and you're right, but there are those out there, highly intelligent and seasoned CEOs that don't necessarily would agree with that sentiment. And in a service business like you and I are in, that's
your only differentiator.
In fact, I worked at an agency that they burned through their team like it was a fire sale every month. The CEO was just an absolute tyrant. And I don't understand how you could sustain your clients. You know, the clients would wonder where we're working with somebody new. It was 3 months. You had a new person then. That's not how it works. And especially now in these times, you're absolutely right. And I think
word travels, right? Word travels and
absolutely.
Your clients feel it. And, you know, I always say we're this boutique sales organization, high touch, high impact, and we're not the least expensive. But I don't want to be
correct.
I don't want to be the cheapest. We're more expensive than a lot of our competitors, but I'm confident in what we deliver is an exceptional experience. And we're not playing the rate game. And it means saying no, and it means not every client's a fit. And it means we're not a fit for every client, but that's okay because we're not going after everybody.
Right. So are you saying, Tammy, that Gillis Sales actually has distinct differentiators that transcends low price? Is that what you're saying?
that we're not the lowest price, right? We're not the lowest price.
Correct.
And so because we lead with the why and we have an exceptional experience and we deliver results, if clients are only making a decision on price, we are not going to be a fit. And guess what? A lot of times they come back to us.
There you go.
They tried a lower price option, but it's important for hotels to understand this, because hotels will say, clients just want a cheap price. And I'll say, well, let's reverse engineer your sales process. What did you lead with? Did you ask them qualifying questions, what they care about, what's important? Okay, guess what? You didn't put any meat on the bones. You only gave them price to talk about. We make price an issue, right? So clients don't want the cheapest experience.
So it's funny, you actually flipped the script on them so that hopefully that aha moment on it, because you were using them as the illustration.
Yes.
That's beautiful. I love that. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. So there's some great conversation, great good sauce tip there. I hope you don't mind that I have you on for a follow-up session. I really enjoyed to pick this up.
Would love to. It keeps me relevant. I love, you're in touch with so many people. You've got a good pulse on what's going on in our industry. And I think collectively, that's what I loved about LinkedIn and the new connections I've made is we're all figuring it out. I don't know everything sitting here in my office in Toronto. The more conversations like this that we can have to help each other's businesses and to help our clients, sign me up. I'm all for it.
That's all. I couldn't agree with you more. I think once we get in that position where we're sitting at this seat where we think that we know it all, you put yourself as a disadvantage, right? Because
that's a threat.
You put it over your head. Like you could be picking up something that you could be learning that would be valuable for your business, but you put these walls up by thinking, well, it's that whole adage, right? We've always done it this way. And in this culture, that's dangerous because weekly things are changing. Things that worked
my gosh,
last month don't work any longer.
It's fluid. It's so fluid. We have to keep a pulse. So yeah, I'm all in. You let me know when you're ready to have me back and talk more about sales ad nauseum.
Love it. Fantastic.
Thank you, Cory.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Take care.